Good evening, everyone. I want your indulgence for a minute. My grandson, Benjamin Gewirtz, is here, and he's a Talmud in the Mir Yeshiva, and he and a few others have a small special project for Purim to stay sober and to stay out of the street. And I want to put him in the family business, so he's going to ask you for money. So, Benjamin, please explain.
Thank you. So, as you know, Purim's coming up in a couple of weeks, and the problem is for the Bachrim, the students in Yeshivas Mir, that there's really no place to be. It's such a big yeshiva. There's 8,000 students, so everyone, with all the alcohol going around in Purim, so everyone just has no place to be and just runs around the street, and obviously that leads to trouble. So me and my friend decided we wanted to change that. So we are planning to rent a hall, and we'll have a Megillah reading there, and afterward we're gonna have everyone sit down and learn for 45 minutes, which in Purim everyone forgets about learning somehow. And then we're going to follow that we're going to have a nice Yom Tov meal with someone's going to be making a siyum at this. And then afterward, when that's done, we're going to have music and dancing. Everyone could have true Simchas Purim without the trouble. And so we're in the fundraising stages. It's a big project, so if whatever anybody could help with, would be very appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. You can all see Benjamin. It's very hard to ask people for money. So you have to train yourself. And the Ponevezher Rav taught me this. You have to train yourself that it's not for you. As long as it's not for you, it's much easier. So I wanted to be Mechanech, my grandson. I think this is the first appeal of his life. And I want to thank you all for participating in this educational moment. The one who constructed the Mishkan, the one who's in charge of it, the Torah says, "Rei korosi b'shem Betzalel ben Uri ben Chur lamata Yehuda." Betzalel, the son of Uri, the son of Chur. The Chur is the famous Chur that apparently was murdered at the instance of the Egel Azov, of the golden calf. And Chur was the one that sat with Moshe to support his hands when the Jewish people, Yoshua, fought Amalek in the first war that he had to conduct. So the Rebbeinu Shalom said, I appointed Betzalel ben Uri ben Chur. He's going to be the one that's going to Milesi Oso, and I gave him talent. Chochmah v'das. So aside from talent, you need chochmah. You need good sense. You need wisdom. Part of the problem that we always have with people of artistic temperament is that many of them have great talent but not much sense. And therefore you have all sorts of weird things happening, either in their personal lives or in the community or in the positions that they take on issues, etc. So the first thing Rebbeinu Shalom gave him was chokhmah. He should have good sense, a das, and he should know what he's doing. This is a great construction effort. It requires an enormous amount of talent, organization, use of resources. You got to know what you're doing. I remember that the first year that my wife and I were married, so for the first time I was able, we moved out of the old neighborhood, which had only apartment buildings. So then it was impossible to have a sukkah because you had enormous apartments. There was no yard, there was nothing. So we used to carry the food to the yeshiva sukkah. And it wasn't much of a sukkah doing it that way. The women couldn't come, and it was a... So now we moved to a new neighborhood, and we had a backyard. We had a chatzer in the back. So I said, I'm going to build a sukkah. And I hired a Jewish carpenter, the whole time Polish Jew, and he's building the sukkah. And I wanted to make sure that, you're never as smart as you are when you're 22 years old. So I wanted to make sure that he was doing it halachically correct and everything. So I was giving him advice along the way. And after a period of time, he got tired of me. And he said to me in Yiddish, he said, Herzchain, junger Mann, listen to me, my young man. Das ist nicht kein Blatt Gemara. This is not a page in the Talmud. Das darf man kennen. You got to know how to do this. So Bezalel has to know how to do it. They have a famous story about a Rav that came to town, and he built a mikveh. And he built the mikveh according to the Mishnah in Mikvos, exactly followed the instructions, and he built it, and after a month the mikveh collapsed. So the Balabatim came to him, they said, Rebbe, what happened? He said, Tesis asked the question, Taki. You got to know what you're doing. So the Medrash, and Rashi quotes it. Now there are two girsos in the Medrash, opposite girsos. The question was whether to build the kelim first or the building first. Whether to build the Mishkan itself first and then build the kelim, that you put them in there, or build the kelim, and then when all the kelim are built, all the artifacts, everything, the aura and everything, and then you'll build the building. So there are two girsos in the Medrash. Rashi quotes one of them, but there are two different girsos. So in one girsa, Moshe says build the building, and Bezalel says no, build the kelim. In the second girsa, it's the opposite. Moshe said build the kelim, and Bezalel said no, build the Mishkan. But whatever girsa will adopt as being what happened, Moshe admitted to Bezalel that you're right. I remember now that in heaven, that's what they told me. They told me what you said, and I misquoted it, and I said the opposite. And therefore, Moshe said, that's why your name is Bezalel. Because Betzel Keil Hoyisa. You are in the shadow of God. In other words, you have an intuition. And intuition is very, very valuable in creative arts. You know, Michelangelo, he made the great statue of David that you could see in Florence. I've seen it a number of times. It's a piece of marble that's alive. You want to shake hands with it. It's unbelievable. So they asked him, how did he do that? What was his talent? So he said, when I look at the piece of marble, I see the statue in it already. So all I have to do is cut around the edges, because I see it already. That's Betzel Keil. That's the godly intuition. painters have it, artists have it, musicians have it. The great composers, they hear the music in their brain before they put anything down on paper. And you have somebody like Beethoven, who was deaf, who never heard anything that he wrote. And he's one of the greatest composers in the world. So how did that happen? Because it's in his mind. That's the imagination that people have. And that's called B'Tselem Kale, in the shadow of God. Because God, Kaviyachal, is the great creator. Yesh Me'ayin, he's able to create from nothing. And he gave to human beings talent that they also are able to create things. And all the inventions that we have and the technology, somebody thinks of that before it happens. Somebody thought of the transistor. Somebody thought of the little plug that runs the whole computer. Somebody thought of these things. So where does that come from? So that's what the interpretation of the name of B'Tselem is. That's a piece of godliness. It's a piece of the Ribono Shel Olam. It's the shadow of God. How it affects us. And that's what the Baal Shem says, Hashem tzilcha al yad yaminecha. The Ribono Shel Olam is your shadow. The shadow is that imaginative quality that human beings have. So throughout Jewish history, we have had great, talented people. Both Batei Migdash, but all the other things that have been created. Not just physical properties, but intellectual properties as well. People have to think about it. That's part of the talent. It's part of the gift. And that's why throughout Jewish history, anything that was creative was called on the name of B'Tselem. So here in Israel, even the art school, they called it B'Tselem, because that was Jewish tradition. Whether or not it is or isn't, but it's indicative of how the idea resonated amongst Jews. So naturally in the Golus we had a very difficult time to be able to give expression to our talents. In the Sephardic world, in the Yemenite world, in the Middle East, the Jews were the goldsmiths, the silversmiths. They were the ones that made the jewels. It was a Jewish vocation, which it was not amongst the Ashkenazim because of the fact that they did not have the material, nor did they have the ability in the countries that they lived in to engage in such practices. But that was one of the reasons that Jews always dealt in diamonds as well, in precious stones, because of the fact that that reflects the creativity, how to cut the stone, how to set it, how to do it. So all of that is Nikra al Shem B'Tselem. And the Ribono Shel Olam said, Rei korosi b'Shem B'Tselem ben Uri ben Hur. Not by accident, it's a godly talent. And if it's a godly talent, then one should exercise it. One should use it. I remember Rabbeim in the yeshiva, we had a young man that was an excellent artist, and the Rabbeim insisted that he go to art school and that he develop it. So in a different generation, we would say it's Bittul Torah. But that was him. And you have to be what you are. So that's part of the idea in the Parsha, when we read about B'Tselem, Vayas B'Tselem, the Torah calls it on his name because he is the example, again, of the human creativity, which is the shadow of God, the gift that is given to us. Reb Chananya ben Akashia Omer Ratza Kodesh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Es Yisrael Lefichach Hirba Lahem Torah Mitzvot Shenemar Lenoi Chafetz Aman Tzidko Yagdil Torah V'Yadir.